Have you ever had a dream so big that just telling it made people laugh? Have you ever felt that mix of inner clarity and outer doubt, as if, inside, everything made sense? That the whole world looked at you as if you had gone crazy? Maybe. You've experienced this. Or maybe you're experiencing it right now. An almost indescribable desire to build something bigger. Something of your own. Something that doesn't yet exist. But that you can see clearly, even if no one else can. Here, every story is a spark. Every video is a safe space to remember who you are, even when the world tries to make you forget. And today, the story you're going to hear is more than just a journey of overcoming obstacles. It's an emotional map for anyone who has ever felt out of place, rejected, invisible. It's about those people who, before becoming legends, were called deluded. People who dared to believe in a future that seemed absurd. Who insisted on continuing even after hearing this will never work from family, friends, bosses, and even their own inner voice. Have you ever experienced this? Walt Disney was told he wasn't creative enough to work in art. J.K. Rowling was rejected by 12 publishers while struggling to feed her daughter. Spielberg failed film school 3 times, and many other stories that you may have seen here. They had something in common, a goal that was invisible to others, but too big to be ignored by themselves. Most people give up before the first yes, but these names that today move billions, who are cultural icons and world references, started out hearing only no. They started out being discarded, humiliated, discredited. But do you know what they did when no one else believed? Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to see here might remind you of something you already knew deep down, that there is a moment, silent and solitary, where everything changes. And that maybe you're closer to it than you think. This isn't a story about fame. It's about purpose. It's not about talent. It's about resolve. Because what all these outcasts who became legends had in common was a conviction so deep, not even reality could shake it. And it is precisely at this point that everything begins to change. When the voice of the world is silent, or worse, shouts against it. And yet, you choose to listen to your own. When the whole scenario seems to deny you, and yet, something inside you says, go. This silent decision, this almost invisible choice, was what transformed rejections into legacies. It was the turning point that no one saw. But that changed everything. And perhaps, as you listen to this story, you are remembering a situation that left its mark on you. A time when you wanted to follow a path and were discredited, ignored, and even doubted yourself. Or perhaps you are in the midst of that moment right now. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below with what has touched you the most so far. It could be a phrase, a memory, a question that has been on your mind. Because this space here is not just for telling stories, it is for opening up new paths. And when you comment, you are starting a real conversation. With me, with other people who identify with this, and most importantly, with yourself. If you feel that this video has touched you in some way, please like it here. This isn't just a button, it's a sign for YouTube to continue delivering this type of content to those who also need to hear it today. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, take the opportunity to do so now. Because each new video here is made with the intention of reminding you of who you are, of what you carry inside, and of the strength that can be reborn even on the most difficult days. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this message. People who, like you, are looking for the courage to make that invisible decision that changes everything. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because it is here, at this point in history, that most people stop. It is not due to a lack of talent, nor due to the lack of opportunity. It is at this exact moment when rejection seems to confirm everything that insecurity has always whispered. When someone says you don't have what it takes, and you feel that maybe they are right. The pain of rejection does not come only from the no that you heard. It sets in because it touches a wound that was already open. The doubt that lives quietly inside, waiting for an argument strong enough to make you give up on yourself. Don't imagine being faced with your biggest dream and hearing from someone you counted on to support you that it's not for you, that you're no good, that what you have to offer isn't enough, doesn't move you, doesn't make an impact, isn't worth it. Now think about what it would be like to receive that kind of response not once, but several times. And not from random haters, but from institutions, mentors, companies, people with decision-making power. It was the same with almost all of those we admire today. They went through the backstage of humiliation before stepping onto the stage of recognition. Walt Disney was fired for lack of imagination. J.K. Rowling stacked up rejection letters like someone collecting defeats. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school team. Oprah was removed from television because she didn't fit in. Each of them was told more than once that their dream wasn't real enough. But the part that almost no one sees is what this generates inside. Because rejection hurts, of course, but what it really does is push you to a silent crossroads. Either you believe them, or you decide to trust yourself even without external proof. And it is this decision that shapes everything that comes after. It is there, when everything seems to point to giving up, that the possibility of a new mindset is born, an internal turning point, an invisible but powerful transformation that says, I don't need them to see it now, because I've already seen it. This is where stories change course. It's not when the world applauds. It's when you stop begging for applause. When you realize that if you wait for approval, you might spend your entire life sitting in the audience of your own existence. And there's nothing more devastating than living your life asking for permission to be who you already are. Maybe that's why these stories resonate so much with us. Because deep down, they remind us of a hidden truth. Most people don't fail because they lack ability, but because they don't know what to do with rejection. And those who learn to get through this valley rarely come back the same. Rejection has a cruel way of feeling like an end. But in many cases, it's just the point at which the real journey begins. It's when the masks fall, when the ego crumbles, when the need to please gives way to the power of being authentic. It's when you look in the mirror and, instead of asking, am I good enough? You start saying, this is mine, and I'm going to see it through. Comment here. I'm on this journey too, whether you've already felt this firsthand, or if you are living this moment now. Your word here matters, and there is one moment, specific and powerful, that unites all these stories. It has no spotlight. It has no audience, but it is the moment that transforms everything. These people you see today on stage, in books, on screen, and in great deeds went through this point. And what separates their trajectory from the majority was not talent or luck. It was mindset. It was the courage to decide silently that no one would define their worth anymore. It's as if, at a given moment, they broke away from the need to be approved. As if they said, the world doesn't need to understand now, because I already understand. And that changes everything. Jim Carrey wrote himself a check for $10 million. It wasn't a joke. It was a symbolic contract with his own future. Beyoncé looked in the mirror and said to herself, no one defines my greatness anymore. Oprah, after being discarded by television, made an internal pact. She would never again be shaped by standards that didn't honor who she truly was. And do you see how none of these decisions were about proving anything to anyone? They were about making decisions for herself, choosing her own narrative even when the world still insisted on the old version. This is the part that many people don't see. the impact of an invisible decision. A choice that happens when everything still seems the same, but inside, it's already something else. Because when you truly choose to trust yourself, something changes even in the way you walk, talk, breathe. It's like you're putting on a new armor, not to protect yourself from the world, but to remind yourself every day that you no longer need to hide from it. And this decision, when it comes from pain, is even stronger. Because it's not theoretical, it's not pretty, it's visceral. It's the moment when you look at yourself and say, I may not have anything yet, but I'm not going to treat myself like I'm nobody anymore. And from that moment on, everything that once seemed impossible starts to reorganize itself. The doors may still be closed on the outside, but on the inside, the path is wide open. This is the kind of revelation you don't learn from self-help books, because it's not about formulas, it's about identity. It's about breaking away from the version of yourself you created to please, to fit in, to be accepted, and finally allowing the real you to take its place. This is the real backstage of the journey, the part that comes before any external transformation. And that's when everything starts to make sense. They didn't wait for approval to start. They didn't ask for the green light. They didn't ask for permission. They just decided. And you feel it when it happens. You don't even have to say anything. The look changes. The energy changes. Life starts to respond differently. Because the universe has a curious way of recognizing those who have finally recognized themselves. Comment here. That makes sense to me. If somewhere inside you, this invisible decision has also begun to form. And when this new identity is born, something very powerful starts to happen on the outside. The doors begin to open. The looks change from judgment to admiration. What was previously treated as madness becomes a vision. It is at this moment that the applause arrives. But what almost no one tells you is that true success did not begin there. It started much earlier, in the invisible. In that internal moment where no one applauded, where the only audience was one's own heart beating strongly for something that did not yet exist. That is why this stage of the journey has such a profound impact. Because it is not just about recognition. It is about validation of the decision. That was made when everything around was screaming that it would not work. The most curious thing is to see how the world reacts. Because the same people who laughed, doubted, and even mocked start repeating your name as if they had believed in you from the beginning. Criticism becomes quotes. Rejection becomes headlines. And the questions that were once full of distrust, but do you really think this will work? Turn into measured compliments, as if trying to soften their own mistake. I always knew you had something special, but those who have lived behind the scenes know. They know how much the silence hurt. They know how many times the desire to give up seemed more logical than continuing. They know the weight of maintaining a solitary faith, day after day, even without any sign that things would change. That is why, when the results finally appear, they do not represent just an external achievement. They represent the victory of one's own internal truth over collective doubt. And this change doesn't happen overnight. It's subtle. First, a different perspective comes. Then, someone who previously ignored you asks, "How did you do it?" Then, invitations, opportunities, and collaborations that previously seemed unattainable appear. But what makes all this happen is not just talent or isolated effort. It's the energy that takes hold when you stop begging for space and start taking up yours. There's a hidden truth here that many people forget. The world doesn't applaud you because you arrived. It applauds you because you persisted even when no one was looking. And that's what makes these stories so powerful. They're not fairy tales with perfect endings. They're real portraits of people who decided to embrace who they are, no matter the cost. And that's why they're so inspiring. Because they remind us that the impossible is just a temporary name given to us by those who didn't have the courage to continue, and those who choose to continue, even in the dark, build paths that didn't exist before. Write in the comments, "I continue even in the dark," if this part of the journey resonated with something you've experienced or are experiencing now. And you? Tell me honestly, at what point in your story did you lose sight of who you really are? At what point did you start to disbelieve what you felt so strongly inside, just because no one around you validated it? Sometimes we slowly move away from our own dreams without realizing it. We trade courage for caution. We trade intuition for opinion. And suddenly, that plan that once pulsed in your chest with such clarity becomes just another muffled thought, kept at the bottom of the drawer, of things that maybe one day. But what this video wants to remind you is that you can still choose. That even in the midst of chaos, fatigue, and a routine that crushes your best impulses, there is still time to make an invisible decision. The decision to start, to continue, to return to what once made you feel alive. Because this is the hidden truth behind all these stories of overcoming. None of them began with approval. They began in silence, at rock bottom, in the dark. And perhaps that is where the most profound transformations happen, Don. So I want to ask you, looking deep into what you carry around right now, how many times have you heard that your dream isn't real? How many times have you been told to be more realistic? How many times have you convinced yourself that it was better to stop trying? Where did this idea come from that you need permission to become who you were born to be? Because the truth, even if it hurts, is this: if you don't decide for yourself, the world will continue to decide for you. And it will always choose the safest, most predictable, most comfortable path. But what if your mission is exactly the opposite of that? The world won't hand you a red carpet just because you have a good heart. It won't make room just because you deserve it. But it starts to give way when you stop asking for passage and start walking. Even if it's slowly, even if you're still shaking, even if you're still hurt by past rejections. Because there's a strength that only comes from those who keep going, even when they're not sure of anything. And maybe you are there, right now, feeling exactly that. That mix of pain and faith, of fear and hope. That tightness in your chest that tells you that you can no longer live a made-up life, built on the expectations of others. If that is the case, maybe this is your turning point. Not the kind of turning point that explodes on the internet, but the deeper, truer kind. That happens when you look at yourself and decide that you will no longer wait to be chosen, that you will choose yourself now, just like that, with everything you have and everything you still need. Because deep down, you already know. No one is going to go through this journey for you, and no one is going to feel this victory in your place. Your silent turnaround begins when you stop chasing approval and start walking in the direction of what you already know is yours. Maybe no one believes it yet, but you can. And that changes everything. If you felt this way, comment below. I choose myself today. Because sometimes all we need is to remember that there is still time. And now, there is one last point in this story that can make everything make even more sense. If you've made it this far, it's because some part of this message resonated within you. And that says a lot about what you carry inside. We don't connect with just anything. We connect with what our inner language speaks. And if this video helped you, remember something that was dormant, then it was worth a dot. If this type of conversation resonates with you, subscribe to the channel, because everything I build here has a clear purpose: to create a space where you can reconnect, strengthen yourself, and most importantly, make decisions for yourself. Every week, you will find stories, reflections, and real turning points that can spark something inside you. Like today. Leave it here in the comments. This message was for me, just so I know you stayed with me until the end. These words show me that this connection is real, that this surrender has an impact, that there is someone on the other side who is also on this journey. And if this video touched you in any way, leave a like. It's just a click, but it helps this content to continue to exist, to reach those who may need it right now, just like you did. There is a video here that complements everything we talked about today. Click and continue with me there. The next spark could be there.